So once again, if you have questions for any of our panelists, feel free to text those in. We'll maybe start with one for everyone on the panel. You all kind of described different investments you've made in different pieces of technology. Maybe what are like one or two kind of factors that help you decide to move forward with an investment in some new technology, or maybe one or two red flags that say, let's pump the brakes, let's not move forward on this project just yet? What gives you the feeling that you can move forward on some of these investments?
I think I had mentioned it, Arthur, already on my part, but really it was just feedback from the customer. It's so important to understand why we didn't win programs, and certainly that played a huge role in our initial foray into that space. The other piece of it was just, it is by far the place within our operation where we spend a boatload of money. I mean, our lines are they're incredibly expensive. The opportunity to do it ourselves and really put a capital preservation path in place was really a lot behind it.
Making an investment in an $8,000 sewing machine is a little easier than what you guys are looking at. But by and large, it's like, when do you have the idea and how quickly can you do it? Trying to keep the time frame short is one of the biggest things that we look at. And in today's world, where there are so many opportunities for people wanting to finance equipment purchases and stuff, and the government helping you out by letting you expense it, it really becomes, in all honesty, in most cases, almost a no-brainer, because you're taking money either you'd be paying in taxes or a lot of other things you might be spending money on. You're financing 100% in most cases. And then, like I said, then it becomes easier as long as you continue to grow. And in our case, most of our automation has been for vertical integration.
Yeah, one of the things that we look at is the rate of return on the investment. So, a lot of what we're looking at for automation is software and the cost of the software, but also the hidden costs of the software, like just how much time is it going to take for somebody to implement it and continue to maintain that integration is a big deal for us. But another thing we look at is, are we trying to automate a task that people find unpleasant? Like, that's a driver for us, right? Is if we have our employees doing basic data entry stuff that, they're bored, it's easy for them to make mistakes, we try to look at those processes first and say, okay, how can we automate this and make their jobs easier?
And I think with Wenthe, what we've looked at is anything that can limit the variation. When we look at customers that want better and better components, and you look at some of the processes and you say, the variation is coming from the process, not from the operator. Whatever we can do to make that stronger. And to mimic what Sara said too, I think WMEP calls it the pain index. But some operations that nobody really wants to do, taking a piece of steel and moving it through manual punches for 8-10 hours a day, is not something everybody wants to sign up for. And then whatever can support our customers through speed, through quality, through opportunity. But on the data entry side, who wants to run out to the floor with a purple sheet that says, we need this tomorrow? Nobody, especially if it happens all day, every day. So things that make it move more fluidly are definitely in our eye.
How about on the vendor side? And I'm sure there's a whole bunch of variables that go into each one of these different projects that you talked about, but just evaluating vendors to supply, the investment that you're looking at. Folks can speak their book and tell you how great it is, but fingers crossed that actually lives up to it. So how do you go about kind of sorting through the vendors that you're looking to for these investments?
Well, I don't know about anybody else, but I've never had a vendor tell me a fib. You try and scope the project as well as you can. I mean, we work with HubSpot like you do, and they told us some real whoppers at the beginning of the process. And it's like, you said you can do that, right? You can take our Outlook system of tracking all this stuff and put it right into the system, right? Oh, no problem, no problem. It's a problem. So I'd like to find a magic work for it, but the trick is truly to work with your own network group of other executives that and if you aren't in a group of executives, I would highly recommend it. we keep learning from each other and making recommendations that way. And then just, you know, check some of the references, because it really makes a big difference. If you you lose 6 months on a project with somebody that might not be telling you the whole story.
Yeah, I would second that. You know, we really look for references and talk with other companies who've used that product or that software, and ask them straight out, you know, what are the things you wish you would have known, or what are the things you don't like about this system, and that can always be good insight before you choose to move forward.
And I think building partnerships, I mean, we're all here talking about equipment and, you know, that aspect, but it's the teams, it's the partnerships, it's the relationships that kind of build your business. So having partners that you've worked with before, or other companies that you trust, and you can say, who did you use, how did it go? You know, kind of mirroring the same that everybody has said, but, you know, that's what we like to do, is build a partnership and advance the team.
Yeah, absolutely, Rob. I would second all that, and also we run our facilities at 3 ppm in the automotive side of the business. That's what we have to do. The system that we use for our suppliers for parts is the same system that we deploy as we look at our suppliers for our automation equipment.
Sara, I wanted to dive in. You talked about your HubSpot change and kind of where you were with in terms of how much Salesforce was really getting used. And then you talked about the 18-month-long project. I guess both just, you know, the change management of going from we barely use the software we have to we're using it for a whole bunch of stuff. How did you manage that bit? And then also just on the 18-month project, how have you not kind of lost momentum amid that frustration?
Yeah, so to answer the first part of it, getting employee buy-in up front to talk about, you know, the risks of not documenting things on the front end, right? So when we've had turnover in our sales group and they leave and you don't know where any of their deals are at, where they're at with any other customers, it was a problem for us. And so we talked about that being, you know, we tried to encourage it gently at first, and then less gently. And then eventually, with some of the people, it really got to the point of saying, you know, this is a condition of working here. Like, this is how we're going to do the work and how we're going to do the job. And we, you know, if this is not what you want to do for your job, like, you probably should not continue in this role. And so we did have to get tough with a couple of people. In terms of the sync software that we're trying to use to move things from the CRM to the ERP, it's been an incremental sort of process. So the first step was to try to have new customers come over and get created as new customers in the ERP system, and then we tackled customer orders and having orders come over with, you know, the address information and customer contact information. Now we're working on customer order lines, so the individual items that they order moving over. So it's just taken a long time. Mm-hmm. And we actually have talked recently about, because it's taken so long with this partner and they have not met our expectations, we've talked about starting the search for, should we go find another vendor partner? So we still like the concept. We still think it's good work to do, and the automation work would make our people's jobs a lot easier, but we just don't know in the end if this was the right partner for us. So lessons learned.
Yep. You mentioned employee buy-in and the importance of that, and we've gotten several questions already from the audience just on just on automation in general. The idea of automation is taking my job or taking jobs. How have you each kind of gone about addressing that with your workforce? Is it down to just we're focusing on the pain points, and so we're going to make everyone's lives easier, or how do you just get that buy-in and assuage those fears?
I think it's hard to have any kind of automation project and sell it to any financial person without saying that there will be a negative head count, you know, a reduction in people working there. But we look at it as not a reduction in people working there. Everybody who's employed will stay employed. Everybody who is a full-time employee at Wenthe-Davidson is an owner, and they get financial compensation through, you know, through their daily activities, but also through retirement. So the better path we can provide for them, and possibly a higher level position, programming the robot instead of welding every day. A lot of these jobs are things that people don't want to do at the rate that they're doing them. So, but it's getting the buy-in early and failing fast, realizing you might have the best idea, you think, try it. If it doesn't work, don't be afraid to walk away.
again, demonstrating to your people that you really are interested in growing really helps, because they can see opportunities to work in other areas, and hopefully we continue to cross-train people, so that even among departments, and that helps it. I don't know why you didn't think of the idea of a lifetime contract for all your salespeople. That seems like that would have solved your problem right away on that one, Sara.
I would add that, add to what Rob said. And when you look at the opportunities for your people on the floor, you got two guys sitting right here in the front from the WCTC who have great programs in automation, who can elevate your people up to that next level. So we don't have to, we've been automated from day one, but our lines, some of them have one person, two people on them. But as we migrate more towards automation with fewer people, we can bring those people up to that next level through programs like what are offered by the WCTC, or we can move them into other new programs, because we are always adding new lines at our Whitewater or Waukesha facility. So there's always going to be opportunities for the individuals, even though as we continue to upgrade our automation.
Is there any change in the way you go about hiring as the level of technology increases? Is it, are there specific skills you have to look for? Is it a specific mindset and less on skills? That adaptability for the technology that's coming, do you have to change how you hire it all for that?
I think we have some entry-level operations at our facility, and those are good to get somebody, basically to come in and work, see how they progress. But having that mindset for the future and some vision of what you're going to do. And Fred Anderson is somewhere out in the crowd out there. All I see is spotlights, but he started with the company 48 years ago, I believe, and he's CEO of the company now. So there's definitely room for growth, and people see that when you do hire from within. But just giving them the opportunities for education so they can return to school and grow in those fields. But there are times where you have to go find a specific person outside of the company, and you have to look for that skill set.
I think in today's world, there's different opportunities for when you go through the hiring process. We use Culture Index as one of ours. I know other people use many other different software packages, but I think it does help a little bit. At least it becomes a discussion point. I mean, if we find somebody that's super low on the logic schedule, logic portion of the report, and somebody very high on the social one, they're probably not going to be a good factory worker. Maybe sales.
Some of the hardest positions to fill are automation technicians and controls engineers. By far, some of the hardest to fill.
Got an audience question. I'm going to check this stat out, but I'm going to trust our audience because they're all smart people. Gallup reports 70% of change initiatives fail to achieve their objectives for the past 20 years. How do you not become a statistic?
I think it'd be just by doing that, try things on a small scale before you make them large. So even before you invest in the technology, you can find another partner that can do some of the work for you and try it out in your processes to make sure it works.
I think a big thing for us is really understanding the why before we get started on something, and selling people on the what are we trying to accomplish, and making sure we get that buy-in up front. That seems to help with not stalling out.
We haven't always batted 1,000%. We've had some failures, and when you're willing to admit it and people see it, they're more open to giving you suggestions up front, I think. So I'm not sure what the percentages are, but I'd like to think they're a little better than 90.
There you go.
I also had a wise person tell me once that, change is what you decide right now. It's good, and you can always change it again. So, we try to have somewhat of an experimental mindset in that we try something, and if it doesn't work, we try something else. And so we don't get stuck in, this is what we decided, now we're going to stick with it forever. And I think our people culturally have really come along with that and know that we're always open to their input if things aren't working.
Mm-hmm. Another audience question, and we've made it a good chunk of the program before we touched on AI. But do you have any of you have any AI initiatives in place and where are you at applying it? Sara, I know you guys are doing a bunch in this space, so how about we start with you?
Yeah, I have a couple different things to talk about. In fact, Mary, if she's in the back, was going to put up a slide for me, so I'm going to have her do that. To start out with, I would say a year ago, I had never used ChatGPT. I would say if you haven't played around with it, definitely do so. I've used it for things like job postings, creating training plans for people. Tim would hate to hear this, but I've even used it to like take a whole legal document and stick it in there and say, explain this to me in real like English. And you know, we've even done like SQL coding for our sync software where we said, hey, we want it to do this instead. Can you write that section of code? It's amazing what can come out of it. The slide that Mary put up there for you was one that got cut from my 5 minutes. I went over a little bit, so I had to cut. But we do use some different software. So we provide renderings for our customers for architectural purposes for permitting in various municipalities. And the sketch that's on your left is one that one of our designers did. And we have software where we can take that sketch, and in 30 seconds, we can generate the full-out rendering on the right. That used to take hours for people to generate, and that's been great. And then the other area where we've worked on AI is we've incorporated that into a couple of our products, but the one that's most significant is AI voice ordering in the drive-thru. So as many of us have struggled with labor shortages, our restaurant partners are also struggling with labor, and they're looking for ways to reduce labor in the restaurants. And so voice ordering has become a big thing, where you want to be able to pull up to a drive-thru and have a computer basically take your order. But the problem is that there's AI partners out there that have been working on this that are really just working on the audio side of it. And so our order confirmation side, which is more the visual side of it that pops up on the screen, we've been able to integrate with 3 different AI partners and provide a better overall guest experience where we can be working with that audio that they're working on, and we provide the video solution. And so we've gotten to the point where 90% of the orders can be taken without a human intervention. Which is pretty good, and the order accuracy is similar to humans, which I will tell you is not 100%. So it's been some really fun work for us to be really on the front end of that technology and being able to help our customers.
Yeah.
In a manufacturing realm, we're finishing a project with Sina. Is anybody from Sina in the room? But Sina is an integrator, and we have a program going where the robot will come in, actually visualize where the seam is, adjust the weld program and weld it, because the one key to our problems on the floor are, variability. So if the seam isn't where it thinks it's going to be, it's still going to put the weld there, and then you have joint failures out in the process. So that's something coming in October in our facility.
I'm not sure if it's exactly AI, but again, having the machines recognize where things are by virtue of the cameras and stuff is big for both of our cutting machines in our one welding cell that we have. I'm sorry, robotic cell, it's not a weld.
Yeah, I think we've been looking at it in a number of different potential opportunities, both especially on the manufacturing space with regards to vision and learning what's good and what's bad. But I do think that down the road, the back office operations are going to really be a big and a quick win for AI. And I would just add to that we have a competitor in Eastern Europe. Their back office operations are manual, but they have it all in an office in the Philippines. And just what's scary to me and why I think AI is important for us, they pay $500 a month for a staff accountant who's trained in that country's tax laws, and they pay $250 a month for clerical work. And they filled the office with, and that's how they do the vast majority of their back office operations. That's kind of terrifying.
Did have a question kind of on the economy and I guess the current economic environment. How's that affected your business? Biggest concerns moving forward, and I guess also as it relates to investments in technology and automation. How's that shaping up for you guys?
I think it's dangerous, but the time to invest isn't when it's a robust economy. It's to invest on the leading edge of that. So I think as a nation, we're there, and there'll be a lot more manufacturing in the future, but it's time to get ready for that upward tick as it comes along.
And I would say for us, we're tied to construction of new restaurants or remodels. And, building costs are still high. They have been high for a bunch of years. But seeing the interest rates starting to tick down for us, we're hopeful that we're turning the corner on that, and that will help us move forward. That said, it is tough because we're down this year, sales-wise, and so to make those choices about, okay, is it the time to invest when your sales is not where you want it to be? And so those are the conversations we're having every day to try to figure out how much to invest and how much to look towards the future versus taking care of now.
Yeah, I'll just say some of our biggest investments have happened when the markets have been in their worst place and the economy has been incredibly challenged, and we have had to step up and make the investments. And what happens inevitably is certainly in the off-highway side of the business is it's like a whiplash. When it comes back roaring. And if you're not ready, you miss opportunities. And we've learned that over the years, and we are always ready.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, interest expense isn't the biggest consideration. A lot of times it's the availability. And it looks like they're still gonna keep the availability up. And I cross my fingers that they don't do something silly in that regard.
Just got a couple minutes left. Want to ask for maybe one or two final piece of advice you would offer to other manufacturers when it comes to investing in and implementing new technologies.
Get as much of your team involved as possible, and I don't mean everybody in the whole facility, but a sampling from each group. Maintenance has a vested interest in how the machines operate. Engineering does. Quality wants to see that the variability go down. Get everybody together to make sure you're making the best decision for the company, but it also helps when you implement it because now you have that buy-in from the group and it spreads within their direct reports.
The other thing I would say too, it's always an evolution. It's not necessarily a revolution when you're doing things, so it's a series of steps. It's not just one big poof and all of a sudden it's there. So be patient.
I would say the biggest thing I've learned is just to be realistic in terms of the amount of time it's going to take to implement new technology for the people who are involved. And just making sure that with the rest of the things you're trying to accomplish in the business that they don't get spread too thin, so that you actually can push through and accomplish what you're looking to do.
Yeah, and I think I would add that the theme of this summit, the thriving through innovation, really take a step back and look at your businesses today and ask yourself, how am I going to get the economics right, and how am I going to get the technology right? Because fast and furious behind us. I was at a SAE, Society of Automotive Engineers conference in Chicago over the last couple days, and what I saw and what I heard from the OEMs was pretty scary in terms of the amount of money that China is investing in technology. The battery electric vehicles, for example, they're ahead of us. The vehicles are better, they're better quality, they're better economics, they're better technology, and we're falling behind. And I'll leave you with my provocative just comment that we got to step the game up because tariffs are just a Band-Aid. Sure, that'll keep the vehicles and keep some technology out of this country, but all of us, myself included, have got to change the landscape pretty quick, where we're going to see a pretty challenging world in manufacturing here in the U.S.
Well, on that note, Todd's given us some motivation to press ahead in Wisconsin manufacturing. We hope you've all have taken away some insights and something you can apply to your business. Thank you to our panel, and if you could join me in thanking them for being here. Appreciate it, guys.